All right. So we're just gonna wait for a couple minutes, probably make sure people are on. Hello, thank you guys for joining. I wanna make sure my sound is okay. So write in the comments if you can hear me. I wanna make sure sound is okay. A little bright on the light right now for being 6:30 at night. Maybe I'll dial that back a little bit. All right, so, okay, can hear me, yay, okay, good, sounds good. Good. All right, well, thank you guys for your patience. So just to kind of back it up a little bit, so the Congress came to a decision on, they came to agreement on another stimulus bill. So this one is about $900 billion altogether. And they came to an agreement yesterday after an extension. And then now we are here with actual text of the proposed bill. And I still say proposed because it's going through and it's actually being approved right now. You can go over to like C-SPAN or something right now and actually see people casting their votes. So this is kind of happening right now, but we know once we've gotten to this point, it's going to get passed. Okay, so we are here, and that's basically what we're going to talk about today. So I appreciate you guys being here. This is really kind of the best way to sort of get information out to you as quickly as possible is doing a live. So my dog may be walking in. I've actually got a margarita because that's the kind of day it's been. And so hopefully you are also finding yourself winding down for the night, kind of depending on where you are in the country. So the text that came out today was a 5,593 page PDF. So I'm going to try to tell you guys what I have sorted through and, basically the most important stuff for small business owners, particularly related to PPP and the EIDL. Okay, so I'm glad you guys are with me, drinking your Pinot Noirs and your margaritas, all for that. So definitely after a day like today, just trying to like get our heads wrapped around everything too. It's good to have a little just chill moment. So the bill, we have a that has been named, which is kind of always good to hear like what they've named this thing. It's called the Economic Aid to Hard Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues Act. Okay, so there's no nice little easy peasy acronym for us, unfortunately. We don't have something sweet like the CARES Act. So I don't know what they're going to shorten this one to, but this is basically a bill that's been they've tried to tailor the funds more closely to the businesses that really need the money. So I think that's one of the key things. And the good things, honestly, about this act is that they have called out specific NAICS codes that need the money. They've allotted certain funds specifically for more like economically hard hit places or more low income areas. So they have specifically tried to allocate these funds more directly. Sorry, I got something flying around my head. So they've tried to put these funds more to the areas that really need it. So we'll see whether or not that actually comes into reality, but we're hoping that that's the case because we all heard about, the PPP loans for the people who probably didn't need the money. So that's, I think, one thing they were trying to accomplish there. So I want to say the big news that I want, there's like a little fly. This is live video. Of course, like right as I turn on the live camera, there's something flying around my head. So the big news is the tax status of the PPP. So if you've been following me, you've been watching the videos, you know that the PPP has what the IRS said, that the PPP expenses would not be deductible if they were, expected to be forgiven. But what this bill puts into law when it's all passed is that we will not consider PPP. We will not consider PPP to be taxable income, which is what the original CARES Act said. And then we will also have the expenses able to be deducted for taxes. So that essentially means that the PPP has zero tax effect for you. You don't have to worry about it. So I've been working with all my clients right now and being really like trying to be nimble about like what to do for tax planning, because we knew that the PPP expenses weren't going to be deductible. But now we know the PPP expenses have no tax effect. They do not get counted as income. Yay! Yes, like, so let's just take a little moment and celebrate. Yay! 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 Okay, that's huge. Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. People were getting like these PPP loans for like, $100,000+. And then, you take a tax effect of that and, you might be having to come up with a bill of $20,000-$50,000 in, estimated taxes. But now we don't have to worry about that. So, that is a really, really, really big deal. That's why I want to talk about it first, because everybody's talking about this because it's the end of the year. Okay. So I actually have some videos on that I'm going to go ahead and take down because I don't want to confuse anybody any further. So we'll probably have another video out just to confirm that for everybody. So yes, drink to that. Cheers. Congress did something for us. Like I'd say that's kind of worth it, right? Okay. And yes, there was just the question that came through that Howard said, what about the EIDL advance? So you said the EIDL loan, but specifically the advance is also treated the same way. So it's not taxable income, and it is not, you can use the money and you don't have to deduct those, or you can deduct those expenses. So the EIDL advance and the PPP both are being treated the same with basically a zero tax effect. Okay, so on that subject, I will bring up another hot topic that I was about to post a video on this week, but I'm not going to post it because it's not the case anymore. So I was going to explain to you guys how the SBA was going to take out the EIDL advance amount when they remitted your loan for forgiveness. I was going to explain that to you guys, but now I don't have to, because they are basically saying if you got an EIDL advance and you got a PPP loan, it's totally okay. Totally okay. You can keep both. Okay? You can keep both. So if you got a PPP of $100,000 and you got an EIDL of $10,000, then you can keep both of them, or you can get up to the full $100,000 forgiven, and then you don't have to give back the EIDL advance. What was going to happen is you were going to have to net out and kind of give back that advance amount, but that's not the case anymore. Okay. So, and this goes back retroactively as if the CARES Act originally said that this was a non-issue. Okay. Okay, House just passed the bill, NBC News alert. Okay, great. Yeah, see, live updates. Here we go. Well, okay. Yes. Okay. So is that clear? EIDL advance, you don't have to take it out. Now, some of you have already gone through the forgiveness application process. And if you have already gone through it and they did, oh yeah, what if you already paid back the EIDL? So my guess is, I'm not sure exactly the logistics of how it's going to happen. I think Marlon said, but that essentially should not have been taken out now that we're considering, this bill. So my guess is that the SBA will fund that additional amount to your bank. That's what I'm understanding this to say, because they're basically saying they never should have taken it out to begin with, because the language in the bill actually says we rescind and this whole portion out of the CARES Act, the original CARES Act, where it said that. So my guess is that anybody who has gone through the forgiveness application process and needs to and had some remainder from your EIDL advance, that you'll probably get that piece forgiven as well. Okay, so just stay tuned, talk to your bank about it. Yeah, so Valerie said she already paid back her $1,000 that for her EIDL advance. So my guess, Valerie, is that the way that that's going to work is that the SBA will fund your bank. So then you'll have kind of an overpayment situation on that bank loan. So you want to contact your bank. And it might take a little while, guys. Like, that's the thing, is that we've got all this information coming at us. You know, this is not even in law yet. The president still has to sign after we all, you know, get through all the approval processes. And then the banks are going to act. The SBA is going to give guidance. And so it's going to be a couple weeks, I imagine, before we even start hearing from the banks on this. Lots of questions coming in. I'm going to try to handle, like, I probably will wait a little bit on some of the FAQs. If I see something and I can read it pretty fast and I know it's really relevant to what I'm saying, I'm going to try to respond. But I got actually a lot of stuff to get through. Okay. All right. Take a drink. Wet my whistle. Here we go. Okay. So we talked about tax status. Here we go. Whoops. Okay. So that's what happens when I unmute myself. Okay. Let's talk about the second round of PPP funding. Okay. Val, I don't know if you will get it back. You should probably get it back. I'm just not exactly sure how it's going to actually, what the logistics of that are. We don't know that yet. Okay. All right, let's go into the new round of PPP funding. So this bill has provided additional funds close to 200, well, almost 300 billion additional dollars for the PPP program. And so I want to talk through some of you guys who might be thinking you are going to get another loan. And then we are going to talk about forgiveness and what that looks like, blanket forgiveness, Jeff. So just hold on, okay? It's not quite as easy as just yes or no there. PPP funding. So the second round, this is the big thing. There is additional money. One of the big caveats to this is that there will be some type of revenue test. They want you to prove that you've had some type of loss or economic loss because of, you know, coronavirus, or, well, they don't even say it has to be, you have to prove out because it's of coronavirus, but what they want you to do is they want you to prove in 1 quarter of 2020, you had a loss of 25% or more compared to that same quarter in 2019. So what, like if you made $100,000 in Q2 of, or let's say you made 75,000, I want to make easy math here. So if you made $74,000 in Q2 of this year, but you made $100,000 in Q2 of last year, then that would mean that you could qualify. Yes, Arnie, it can be any quarter in 2020. So as long as you were in business of all of 2019. So you just have to prove out that revenue loss. Now, I will do a video for you guys just kind of showing you how to pull some of those reports and the type of, like, just the math basically that you need to do there. But this is going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to do, like, pull a report from a quarter and then compare it to prior quarter and see if you can kind of like test into that. Now, the other thing with the PPP funding is that you apply for it in a very similar way that we did for PPP1. So payroll cost, we take our average payroll costs, which you can take it from either 2019, again, like the same time you did last year. Oh, John, we're talking about it right now. You can take payroll costs from either 2019, or you can take it from the 12 months of the time period up until you apply for the loan. So like if let's say that the loans were available to apply for on like January 5th. I don't know when they're ready yet. It's going to still take a little bit of time. But if it was, say, January 5th, then you could take the 12 months previous. So you could take January 1 of 2020 through December 31st of 2020 to calculate your average payroll costs. So again, just like we did with the first round, those payroll costs are going to include the same things: gross wages, employer contributions for healthcare, and employer contributions for retirement, and then state and local taxes. Okay, so now that we know a lot more about payroll costs too, I think more of you are going to be applying with actual correct numbers than we did when we first did this whole thing, because nobody knew what they were doing way back then. So now we kind of know what we're doing, right? Okay, so 2.5 times monthly or average payroll costs, monthly average payroll costs to apply for another PPP loan. Now you're going to be able to use, well, maybe a couple things about some of the costs, or it may, well, I don't know, I've got a lot of notes here. So the funds will be able to be used for very similar things. So the covered period will be kind of about the same thing as it was before. So we're still talking about a 24-week covered period, and you can use the funds if they need to be used similarly 60-40. So at least 60% needs to be used on payroll, just like the other PPP. But then now we have more expenses we can do on non-payroll costs. Okay, so I'm just going to read these out to you, but I would say that they're going to have to provide a lot more guidance on what's included in all of these other costs. Do you remember like how there were utility payments, but everybody was like, oh, what's a utility payment? We're going to have this happen with this section. So I'm just going to say this is the only information I know at this point in time. So if you guys ask like what counts as this, what counts as that, I don't really know. I just want to take a quick moment. There's about 250 people on this live. So if you could just like the video, that would be great. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel too, because there's going to be a lot more videos coming out. Okay. Lots of questions coming out as well. So thank you guys. All right, I'm going to read out these non-payroll costs. Covered mortgage obligation, which is interesting because it doesn't say mortgage interest obligation. So that's saying covered mortgage obligation. So that means that it's probably including principal this time. Covered operating expenditure, covered property damage costs, covered rent obligation, covered supplier cost, covered utility payments, covered worker protection expenditure, PPE. So all of those would be in addition to the mortgage interest, rent, and utility payments that we have already talked about. Okay. All of that can be used, the loan can be used for all those things. Now you cannot include those costs when you go to apply for forgiveness, okay? Remember, it's still based on payroll costs, but it's good to know that you can use it for these other things if you need to, okay? Everybody's I see a couple of people asking about sole proprietors. I don't know yet. We're still gonna be kind of assuming that payroll costs will be similar to how we calculated it for the purposes of the first round of PPP. So I would say it would be based on your Schedule C, or at least your expected Schedule C. So you could probably do your 2019 Schedule C, or you could do your 2020 expected, line 31 from your schedule, your Schedule C. Okay. That's something to think about. I might actually just do a quick search on sole proprietors just to make sure. But I'm going to continue on. There's a lot to cover here, guys, so I'm going to do my best. And then, we've got lots of time to get into the details, and we will know a lot more. The SBA is also going to provide interim rules, just like they did for the first round of PPP. So this is the really high level. This is the big concept stuff. But when we get into exactly how we do it, all the details and the nitty gritty, they have actually given themselves deadlines to provide guidance. So they've given themselves 24 days after the enactment of this bill, we'll have an application ready, things like that. So they've given themselves deadlines. So I know we're going to know a lot more towards the beginning and middle of January on some of these specifics. Okay. So be patient, stick with me, and, just stay tuned on the videos as well. So one thing for the regular PPP loan is that the second round is that it's not going to be for organizations with anybody or with more than 300 employees. So they have specifically made it for a smaller amount, a smaller business than what was previously, what we could do previously. So it used to be under 500 employees, and now they're saying under 300 employees. Okay. The max that you can get under this second round of PPP is $2 million. So again, they're really trying to target those smaller businesses and the people who need it more. I'm hoping that that's what this money is going to go to this time around. Okay. Let's see. So we talked already about the revenue. the gross revenue loss that we're going to need to prove out. This also, they're not going to give any money to political lobbying groups. One thing that I thought was really interesting is that they actually specifically excluded organizations that have like majority Chinese ownership. Like if your owners are in the People's Republic of China, they have language in there to specifically exclude that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if maybe that was like being abused before and then they put this in here, but there's specific language around specific Chinese ownership. And then the lobbying groups, I think there were some lobbying groups that got PPP funds the first time around, so they've called that out. All right, so apply these costs. Okay, I think I've already talked about how to calculate it. Okay, now if you are specifically in a restaurant, if you have a restaurant or you're in that type of business, you have been given some extra, considerations, okay? So NAICS, so those are the codes that kind of describe the type of business that you are in. If you know your NAICS code and it starts with a 72, you are in a sector that's considered accommodations and food services sector, comprises establishment providing customers with lodging or preparing meals, snacks, beverages for immediate consumption. Okay. The NAICS code, so this is restaurants, hotels, people who really were affected by COVID. These people are able to get additional funds, and they are also able to get loans even if they have up to 500 employees, okay? So they can apply for another PPP loan with 3.5 times payroll costs, okay? 3.5 times payroll costs. So that, many of you will be interested in that. I know we have some restaurant owners on this call right now. So hotels and restaurants, check your NAICS code, make sure that you were properly classified. I hope you were. And then, check that out. That usually, if you're not sure what you are, you might go to your Secretary of State, whatever you applied for when you first opened your business, you should have it there. But some of your origination documents should have that. So yes, yeah, absolutely. 3.5 times payroll costs for you guys, which totally makes sense. We're trying to put the money where these industries were hit the most. Okay. Okay, let's talk a little bit about another organization type that was allowed to get PPP is news stations and newspapers. I'm not going to go into that because you guys, that's probably not affecting too many of you here. Okay, we have until March 31st of 2021 to apply for these funds. Okay, now this is going to be very similar to PPP1 where it was first come, first serve. Remember though that we don't know whether or not there will be, we have a newspaper. We don't know whether or not we will potentially have another stimulus package. So what could happen is we could get more funds down the road and this could extend out the PPP that much further. However, we can't guarantee that that's going to happen, or if there is another stimulus package, maybe small businesses will be left out of that. We don't know. Okay. But what we know right now is that this round of funding will be available to be applied for until March 31st, 2021. Okay. The previous one got extended until August 8th. And then that has been closed. Nobody's been able to apply for a new PPP loan. It did have some funds still available, but basically now we know we need to apply for this as soon as we can, okay? Total, so just to kind of give you guys a recap, the original, we already spent, for PPP1, $525 billion were given out under PPP1. And this amount of funding is about half of that. So 284 billion are going to be available for PPP loans. And what they've done is they've shaved off that whole demographic that got $2 million and more. So this is really, I think this is a lot of funding. I'm not going to say, hey, there's going to be enough for everybody. There's not enough for everybody. But if you can get on this and you can get your application in and you want another PPP loan and you qualify, I do think that there's going to be funding there for you. Okay. I believe there will be. And then we'll see about another stimulus down the road. Okay. But these funds should go to the people who really need them. There probably will still be a certification similar to the first round of PPP where they asked if you needed the funds. Like if this was like a necessity that you had, that you needed to have this money to continue operating, that you don't have liquidity somewhere else that's helping you out. So, you're going to have to look at those certifications when the application actually comes out. So they will be putting out a forgiveness application. And yeah, we'll have to wait for that. It's going to come out pretty soon. I don't remember if that one was the 10-day, if they said they would get it out within 10 days or if it was 24 days, but I will update you guys on that. Okay. All right. You guys are putting a lot of questions in there, which is great. I'm going to take a drink. And we're going to talk a little bit about shuttered venue grants. Okay. So if you own a venue, an entertainment venue of some sort, live music, theater, a museum, things that typically have people coming through them for live entertainment or some type of exhibit, they have these grants available specifically for you guys, shuttered venues. So this is probably going to be a whole video in and of itself. This is I don't know, I probably scrolled through 25 pages of explanation on these grants specifically, but they do allow you to be able to take a certain amount of previous revenue that you were making and apply for a grant for that amount. So it's a little bit different than a regular PPP. They're actually, I think, allowing grants on top of it, but I'm trying to get to those details. But I wanted to bring that up to you. So if you are a shuttered venue, if you do own a theater, a live music venue event, or you are also an agent for like musicians or artists in some ways, or you own a gallery or a museum. I don't know if galleries would be included, but they might. Museums in particular, then you need to stay tuned because I won't do it on this video, but we will have to dive into that because that's kind of an interesting piece of this whole thing. And it's particular, I mean, it's even listed up at the front that it says Venues Act. Okay, so like they actually are trying to take care of these people because I think they probably recognize too that like we're going to be losing some of our culture if these places die, you know. So I think that it's good that they put that in there. Okay, so all right, I know I miss concerts too, guys. What if you're an artist yourself? I think, Ricky, that you have some ability to look into this as well as artists directly. And if you're not under shuttered venues grants, then you should be able to apply for something under PPP. All right, simplified application process for forgiveness. So everybody's been wondering whether or not blanket forgiveness is going to be a thing. We've talked about it. There's been lots of discussion about blanket forgiveness. I don't want to call this blanket forgiveness, okay? But I think it's close, and I'm going to explain. So they're saying that any loan under $150,000 will have a simpler application process when it comes to forgiveness. It'll be a one-pager. So if you've looked at the 3508S, my guess is it's going to look really similar to the 3508S form for anything under 150. The 3508S was for anything under 50. So they're going to say, okay, we're going to simplify a page down to one pager for any loan under 150. And then they're going to ask for the number of employees that were retained because of the loan, which seems like a weird number. How do you know what was retained? I think they're going to have to provide some guidance on like how you determine that an employee was retained. They're probably just going to ask for a total number of like at the beginning of your forgiveness application and then at the end, kind of like what they did before. And then what they did with the other forgiveness applications. And then they're going to ask you to put your estimated, which I think is an interesting word, estimated amount of the covered loan spent on eligible payroll costs. So they're asking for those two numbers, and then they're asking for your total loan value. And essentially they're saying that like this amount will be forgiven, the amount of the loan value. But what we don't know is if they're going to require you to certify that you've spent all the money in compliance with original PPP terms. So we don't know what those certifications are going to look like yet. So this kind of sounds like it wants to be blanket forgiveness, but they're still requiring certifications. And in the bill, they have not said what those certifications are going to say. So that's why I can't tell you, yes, this is blanket forgiveness, but I can tell you if you have a loan under $150,000, you want to wait to apply right now because you won't have to provide any documentation. So that's a huge thing. Your bank is not going to have to, you're not going to have to prove out any of your expenses if you go and apply for your loan. Okay. So that will save a lot of time for one. And then also it'll just make the application process that much easier. So if you have a loan under 150, let's wait. Ricky, I am talking about PPP. This is forgiveness for everybody. Loans 1 and 2. I think I should make that clear. So this is just everybody's forgiveness process. All right. Make sure I got my notes here. Okay, you are going to have to certify that you complied with the requirements of the loan, but we just don't really know, what those certifications are going to say in detail. So I can't speak to that right now, but I know that we're going to have another forgiveness application that we're going to have to talk through, and we'll go through those certifications to be really clear. If you did not get a PPP loan the first time around, then yes, you can still apply for a second round. That's totally fine. If you got a PPP loan the first time around and you want to get a second one, that's okay too. They haven't made any restrictions on that. But the restriction is you have to, be able to prove out your loss of revenue. Now you can't compare your revenue to a time period that you weren't in operation. So let's say you started your business July 1st of 2019. You can't compare the period you weren't in operations with like what you were in 2020, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. So we'll just pretend like I just didn't say that. Okay. Anyways, compare 2020 to 2019, any one quarter. And then if you have a lower revenue level in 2020 compared to 2019, then you can apply. Okay. I probably will do, like I said, a video to kind of like prove that out. Can you apply? Can you not apply? Okay. Okay. I'm not going to do any recaps, but this will be available after the live is done. You can rewatch it. It'll be it'll be sitting on the YouTube channel, so you can rewatch it. We've still got some stuff to go through. Okay, those are the big things when it comes to PPP. They did expand pandemic unemployment. Now remember that you can't get PPP and pandemic unemployment like at the same time, covering the same things. So you really only need to be taking pandemic unemployment if you are legitimately unemployed. Okay, but they did expand that out through April 5th, 2021. So like let's go to some Q&A, because I think that this will be kind of good. I will not be able to probably I'm gonna try to get to as many of these as we can. Let's see. All right. Okay, I'm gonna just kind of start on the way up, and then if you had if you had a burning question that I haven't already answered and you want to like copy and paste it and put it like more fresh, that might be the best way to go, just because like I can't scroll up and like get everything. Okay, do we need to apply for forgiveness before getting PPP2? No, from what I can tell, that you don't need to, and that would kind of make sense too, because now we're going to be kind of waiting for another forgiveness application to come out. So you don't want to be in a waiting game to apply and then also still need those additional funds. So I think we're going to, I think you're going to be able to get a second round before getting the other one taken care of. Okay. Probably more to understand about that. Okay. But I didn't see anything in what I read. Now, this is a 5,000 page document, 5,593 pages. So I could have missed something. It's possible. It's a very real possibility. But so far I haven't seen anybody, and I haven't seen anybody talking about that either. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't know about the timing of the checks, Jocelyn. If you took PPP and unemployment, you need to just make sure that they were kind of staggered. You don't want them to be applied to like the same time. But really with unemployment, you need to go by your state guidelines and what they said if they considered PPP to be income. But more and more states were just basically saying that PPP was not considered income, so you could still apply for unemployment. So you need to check with your state on that. Okay, this is a good question. If you have the PPP1 and plan to get a PPP2, will they consolidate forgiveness for both loans or individual forgiveness for each loan? I would actually think that this is going to be an interesting question on how the banks handle it, because there is provisions that say that you can increase your limits on the original PPP. However, you're going to be kind of going through another application process. My thinking is it probably will be a second loan and handled like a second loan and not an increase. So if that's the case, you're probably going to have to do two separate forgiveness applications. If you have two loans, you will probably need two applications. But if you apply somehow for an increase, let's say that you could have gotten money for like a higher amount of money under the PPP, but you gave money back because you were just worried about the tax implications or whatever, and now you're going to go and get that amount increased again for what it could have been, then like that's still the same loan, so you would just apply for forgiveness on that. Okay. When can businesses apply for PPP2? We don't have a date yet. Yeah, we don't have a date yet. So just TBD, I would say probably within the next like 2 to 3 weeks, I would be ready. Let's talk a little bit just about getting ready for applying for forgiveness. We will talk more about it on the channel as well, but we want to think about payroll costs, gross wages. I did cover this earlier, but payroll costs, gross wages, retirement costs, what the employer pays in, healthcare costs, what the employer pays in, and then also what the employer pays for state and local taxes. You take that annualized, how much you spend on all that annualized, you divide it by 12 to get your average monthly cost, multiply it times 2.5 if you're a regular business, and then that is your amount that you can apply for a loan, okay? I think everybody will be at the 24-week period, covered period to spend the money. Because the Flexibility Act that came out in June struck through the original CARES Act to make it all loans 24 weeks. And so that's what they're referencing, the covered period. They're going back to like the CARES Act covered period, which would then default back to 24 weeks, okay? That's a hard part of reading this language, is that it talks about like going back to a subparagraph in the original document and then striking through that and replacing it with something else. So like it starts to just get really piecemeal, which is super annoying. All right. If you had a quarter in 2020 with no income and you were in business in 2019 for that period, then you would absolutely qualify for the 25% increase or decrease. Can I prove my 2019 income as a sole proprietor for loss of revenue by providing records from my personal bank account? Contractor was paying me into personal account at the time. I would try to get, you would probably need to show records. This is going to be the hard part. If you don't have business, financials in place, it's going to be hard for you to pull these numbers. Now, as a sole proprietor, you can probably certify. You don't actually have to like prove it out when you go to apply for the loan, but you're going to have to potentially provide that documentation when you go to forgiveness. So keep that in mind. You do need to try to pull this documentation together. You might not have to have it to apply, but you might need to have that type of documentation to prove out for forgiveness, okay? I see some chatter about, I heard it's 30% reduction. There was original documentation. It used to be 50, then it moved to 30. What the bill is saying now is 25%. So you have to have if you had a revenue loss of 25% or more, you are eligible for a quarter, okay? All right, for people who are still here, if you, let's just make sure, if you came in and didn't see it earlier, give this video a thumbs up if you can. I have a thumbs down, but you know what? That's okay. Maybe I didn't answer your question. Give your thumbs down if you don't like it. I'm okay. All right. No, Alexander asked, would PUA be considered revenue if you're 1099 for 2020? No, it would not. How about service website for home repair that was started in 2020? Okay, if a business was started in 2020, you can still apply for PPP forgiveness. What they're going to do is they're going to ask for your average monthly revenue. And so you're going to take, like, let's say you started January 1, then you would take all of your revenue basically for 2020, and then you would divide it by 12. So that would be your average monthly income. Okay. Can you please talk about the IRS rule change? Herman, I don't know. There was the IRS rule about not being able to deduct PPP expenses, but that has been reversed in the act. So the one that we're talking about now is that the income's not taxable and the expenses are deductible. Okay. Okay, Valerie asks if you use Schedule C from 2019 or 2020 to apply for PPP. I think we can probably do either one. Schedule Cs are, if you're a Schedule C, you're not going to have your Schedule C filed yet. If you did, there would be some sort of like time warp thing that's happening. So, but you might have a proposed Schedule C. So if that's the case, if you have a proposed Schedule C because you know basically what your 2020 revenue looks like, you could potentially use that. I'm thinking you probably can. So that's an option. And that goes back to like, you can apply with your payroll costs from the previous 12 months, or you can use 2019. That's what they're giving us the option to use. Thank you guys. I'm trying to keep up here. Lots of questions. 1099 contractors do not qualify as payroll costs, only employees that you're paying on W-2 wages. Okay, that was a big, big confusion the first time around. Do you have to provide? Yep. Okay, there was a question that said, do you have to provide employee information similar to PPP1? Yes, when you're going for your payroll costs, you're going to have to calculate that similar to PPP1. Limitations on eligibility clarifies that a business organization that was not in operation on February 15th should not be eligible for initial PPP loan and a second draw of PPP loan. Yeah, the business did have to be in operations before COVID hit. That is definitely a thing. Okay, so watch out for that. Your business has to be in operations before COVID hit. Guys, sorry, I'm trying to keep up here. For the first round, I got my money and I have, oh, okay. Okay, no, that's a personal question. Do you have an option of choosing any 4 quarters for the 25% reduction? Yes. So let's say that you had an increase in other quarters, but you had 1 quarter with a decrease, that would qualify you. They don't have any kind of like annualized test too. I was thinking that they might have like an overall annualized test and then you would have to apply for like 1 quarter, but that's not the case. Okay, so it's just quarter by quarter. Can we use schedule? So yes, there's going to be individual checks. They're not all that great, but there are some checks. Yeah, we mentioned how calculations are going to be determined. You might want to, we did talk about the EIDL and we did talk about the calculations on how this is all going to be done. Okay. AK says, I just wanted to ask if the HHS Provider Relief Fund Phase 2 and 3 should be added to gross income. You know, I actually have no idea what that is. Sorry, I can't answer that question. Okay. If there's people like posting YouTube links, I would be a little bit careful on clicking on them. Okay, so I'm going to try to hide them when, oh, I think I can review it on my side. Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know anything about that. Sorry, AK. Might be something that I'll learn about, but I don't know about it right now to answer your question. If I already received full forgiveness as a sole proprietor, can I still deduct business expenses? As a sole proprietor, you were not going to have to report any, you weren't going to have any like PPP effect anyway with your Schedule C income. But now, yes, normal, like pretend like it's all normal, basically. Like that, you know, if you use PPP money to pay for your rent or whatever, you can still deduct those business expenses. If they are normal business expenses, you can deduct them. Okay. Did you touch on blanket forgiveness? Yes, I did. It's not like what we were thinking blanket forgiveness would be. So you can go back and watch that. I think that was probably around like minute 30. Let's see. Thank you guys. Yeah, I think I am answering questions, I hope. I heard there are no checks for adults. I don't think that's true. I'm not focused on the individual benefits as much as I'm focused on the business benefits. So like this channel is all about helping people understand small business finances. And so that's kind of where I have to, you know, put my resources. I am trying to dissect this as much as we possibly can. So I'm trying to get that out to you guys. Okay. I heard only C Corps can apply for PPP. Not true. Definitely not true. Okay, thank you guys. I hope that's helpful. I hear there's no, okay. Yeah, any other questions that we've got? I'm happy that this has been helpful for you guys. Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. Am I taking new clients? Yes. So, but I don't do taxes, I should tell you guys. I'm actually a CPA, but I do not do tax preparation. I don't do bookkeeping. What my company focuses on is helping small business owners in a fractional CFO capacity. So if you already have a CPA who does your taxes and you have a bookkeeper or you have an internal accounting team, but you're looking for kind of that next step, the strategy of like what to do going forward. That's what my company does. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to reach out. You can find the link to the website on like through YouTube, and I'll also put it in the comments. All right. Do you know what the journal entries? We'll do one for the accounting because actually now with the fact that the forgiveness is not going to, We're not going to remove the loan off the books the same way. The accounting is going to be a little funky. So we'll do another video on the accounting for this, okay? All right, thanks. I transitioned from part-time entrepreneur last year to full-time entrepreneur this year. It looks like I made more on paper. Would that preclude me from PPP help? Yeah, for this round, you're not going to be able to prove out that you had a revenue loss. So yeah, this money won't necessarily be for you unless you fall into one of these other special grants, something to look for. Now, one thing I want to mention, and I kind of want to do a separate video on this because there's more that I need to read, but there was some specific additional grants targeted, they're calling them targeted EIDL grants for very specific areas. And so like if you were in like a lower economic area, you could potentially get an EIDL grant for the full $10,000, not based on the number of employees. So that's something we need to probably look up and talk about, because that could be really helpful for some of you, that if you are in really kind of a lower economic or lower income area, that you might be eligible for just $10,000. Or if you've got a $1,000 grant, you can increase that to $10,000. So that's something we definitely need to talk about, because I want you guys to get that money if you can apply. I don't have my notes here in front of it, and I know I won't be able to like figure out the full answer before. Okay, it looks like some of you are answering each other's questions, which is good. Yeah, PPP2 will extend out. Yeah, so if you could potentially apply for, I think there's more EIDL funding, where you could, if you are a 1099 contractor yourself, so you are a sole proprietor technically as a 1099 contractor, you are a small business in that way, so you could apply for a loan. All right, in my Q3 2020 numbers fell 25%. Then does the bill say that we should use only the payroll numbers from Q3 only? No, that's not the case. What they're trying to do is they're just trying to prove that you've suffered kind of economically because of all of this. And so you would use your average payroll costs just like everybody else does, okay? So you would take a full year of payroll costs. You would either take 2019 or you would take the previous year from right before you apply, okay? You know, EIDL, I don't know if you can go and get a regular EIDL loan right now. I think they've provided additional funding for it, but that's something I need to confirm. You can basically go to the SBA's website and see if they allow you to apply. That's kind of the thing. Okay, thank you guys. All right, I think I'm gonna call it. I got the rest of this margarita that I need to finish and get some dinner. I probably should have eaten dinner before I started drinking a margarita, but I think I made it through. All right, you guys. Well, this will be available for replay, so if you need to go back and watch it, but there will be a lot more videos coming down the pike, especially as we get more information. If you have not liked this video and if you've not subscribed to the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Please, please, please subscribe. And then also, if this video was helpful to you, please share it with anybody else you know who got a PPP loan the first time around, or any business groups that might need to hear this information. All of this is just like, we need to get the word out, because like there's going to be the businesses that know and the businesses that are not in the know. And the ones that are not in the know are going to be the ones that probably need it the most. Okay, so that's why we have the YouTube channel. That's why we're trying to make this information freely available to as many people as possible, so that the people who need the money can get the money. All right. So thank you guys so much. All right. Am I from California? No, I'm not. I'm actually from Tennessee. I don't have an accent though. I live in Washington State now and it's gone. All right. Bye, you guys. I'm going to call it. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for all the comments. I really do. I read them. So thank you. All right. Bye.